This is going to be a demonstration of a technique for freehand sharpening that I learned recently. And there's three things that make this one of the simpler ways to sharpen that I've come across. And they're the three most important things about this technique. So pay real close attention to these, and they're all very simple. First of all, you need to make sure that the knife blade, the entire blade, stays at a 90-degree angle with the stone. None of this where you go up like that to keep the edge at a 90-degree angle, perpendicular with the stone. The entire blade has to, no matter what direction the edge is facing. In this case, it's facing in this direction. Okay, that's the first thing. Make sure the blade stays at a 90-degree angle. The next thing is to establish the angle. You lift the spine off the stone, of course. So you establish the angle you want, and then lock your fingers and your wrist to prevent any of this from happening, twisting the knife, because that's how you change the angle. Once you get the angle you want to keep it there. So you lock your hand in position and then just move up and down the stone like this, and that's all you do. The third thing is, where do you want to sharpen the edge? Well, most of the time you want to sharpen the entire edge from heel all the way to the tip. Right now, the only portion of the edge that's on the stone is this flat section. The belly and the tip is not touching the stone. So to get the entire edge, as you go up the stone, you want to lift the handle straight up off the stone. You don't do this motion, which is another technique, but not to be used here. You just lift the handle straight up, and as you can see, I hope you can, you end up making contact with the entire edge around the belly all the way until the tip is making contact. So that's the three things. Make sure the blade stays at a 90-degree angle with the stone. Establish the angle you want and lock your hand in place best you can. And then to change the location on the edge that is making contact with the stone, you lift your hand or lift the handle. And by doing that, you will make one stroke up, and as I'm going, I'm lifting my hand slowly until the tip is on the stone, and then I'm bringing the blade back down the stone and lowering my hand to the starting position. You do that over and over again. This is for setting the initial bevel. You're not really worried about sharpening the knife right now. This would be if you wanted to change a bevel, the angle of your edge, or if it's a damaged edge or whatever. Then for the other side, I flip the knife over and I do the exact same thing with my left hand. Okay? Exact same thing. See, and that's the entire thing that you need to remember for the basics of this technique. So I think this would be a great technique for people just now learning to sharpen. You get the muscle memory of making these two motions. One is maintaining the angle by locking your hand and wrist. The other motion is lifting the handle until the tip is on the stone. Now you do not want to go up too high, because as you can see, you would be rounding off the tip. You want to keep the tip nice and pointy. So you just go up and stop right there. Okay, so, and that'll take a little practice, but not that much. This is the simplest freehand technique that I have ever done. Not that I've done a lot. Most of my life I didn't really have a technique. I just went up and back and up and back and got the edge halfway sharp and was good to go. But more recently, I've learned a technique of doing this number and all that, but I like this one the best. So right now I'm going to start. This is a 1K 1000 grit stone, Shapton glass stone, and I'm going to basically reprofile this edge. It's already got a good edge on it, but I'm going to use this Man Bug, Spyderco Man Bug, for this demonstration. But just for grins, I'm going to paint the entire edge with a Sharpie. Now this is, I would have preferred actually to use a Spyderco stone, or actually a DMT, a diamond stone, for this, because when you use a Sharpie on water stones, sometimes the Sharpie comes off because of the water. And on Spyderco stones, I don't like to do it because you end up painting your stone red. So anyway, I've already got it set up, so here we go. So I'm going to set the edge here. Now since this knife already has a bevel that I just as soon keep at the same angle, I search for it by, let me get up here where you can see. I lift the spine, and right there I can feel that it is now on a flat bevel. And I think well, anyway. So I'm going to keep my hand right there. That's the goal, is to keep it right there. Now I'll get this hand out of the way. Normally I use my fingers, but I'm going to keep the hand out of the way for this demonstration. I'm going to go up, and you can see where the contact is being made, and I'm going to come back down. Okay, now the reason I painted the edge, I'll try to keep everything in front of the camera, was to see where I was hitting the stone. Okay, and you can see okay, I removed more steel at the heel, I think you can see that, than I did once I got up to the belly. And the reason that happened was, as I start going, I went up about an inch. You can see, actually, well, there's more water there, but you can see as you get up on the belly, you spend less time on a certain area because it's round. But right here it's flat, and I went up until right about here, so therefore I went more distance on this one portion of the blade. So that's important, especially when you get to where you want to sharpen the belly more, because using it like I just did, I will get this sharp first. Then this won't be quite as sharp. So at that point, you need to, as soon as you start going up with the stroke, lift the handle. And then your stroke will actually start right where the beginning of the belly is. Okay, that's just something good to know. But what you want to do is up and back, up and back. And I've locked my hand in that position. I'm going to flip the knife over, establish the edge, up and back. Okay. And as I said, this is what you would want to do with the initial bevel. Now, if you're going to lower the angle on your edge, you may have to do this for quite a while. Most of the time spent sharpening will be for reprofiling, will be using the lowest grit stone that you start with. And one thing about using the fingers of your other hand is you can put pressure on the edge of the stone, on the edge of the knife, onto the stone in different locations at different amounts depending on how much work a spot needs on the edge compared to the other spots on the edge. Okay. You do this. Oh, shit. Hang on just a second. I've got this all rigged up because to keep it in the camera, I had to do that. Okay, now, okay. Alright, I'm going to look at the edge now. I'm going to try to dry it without wiping off the Sharpie. And you can see that I'm getting very good coverage on the edge. The bevel is the same width from the very edge apex up to the top of the bevel. In this case, it's where the Sharpie marker starts. And on this side, I'm getting the same thing. It's not quite as even. I need to remove a little bit more back here because the edge, or the bevel rather, is a little bit narrower than the rest of it. But that's a very minor thing. I mean, super minor. A perfectionist would want to fix that, or someone who desires perfection. I'm one that desires it, but I seldom get it. With freehand sharpening, you're never going to get perfect. So anyway, find the angle. 3 things. Keep the blade at a 90-degree angle with the stone. Establish the angle you want. I'm going to go up here. See, this is a good example, I suppose. Since I wanted more steel removed from the heel of the edge, I'll just go up and down and not lift my hand or the handle so that I remove more steel from that one location. Now that I've done that, I'm pretty sure. Now I can go back to doing this a couple of times, because you want to smooth out any difference in the edge by staying in one spot for more strokes than the rest of the edge. You want it to be even. Okay, that looks better, and it'll get fixed with the other stones also. I'm going to take this. This is 1K. I'm going to use the 4K in a minute, and then the 8K. So that's pretty good. You want to do that until you have apexed the edge, brought both bevels together so that the edge is sharp. At this point, this one already started out pretty sharp. But anyway, I can see, I don't know if you can, I can see the light reflection right there on the edge compared to the light reflection of the bevel, meaning I have not reached the apex yet. So I'm going to continue a little bit, and like I said, you got to do most of the work on your coarsest stone that you use until you get that initial bevel set. The rest of the sharpening process will be refining the bevel as far as the polishing of it, if you're going to go to a mirror finish, or removing the scratch pattern of the coarser stone that you just used, things like that. Now you can leave it right. I could sharpen this, and once I reach the edge apex, make sure there's no burr, and just leave it with a 1K finish, which would be fine. It's a very nice edge. Okay. Fingers out of the way. Okay, I'll say it again. Keep the blade at a 90-degree angle with the stone. Notice that I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. You can if you want to. In fact, if that's what you're already doing and you're getting good results, there's no reason to change. As I said before, this is mainly for people beginning to learn how to sharpen. This is a very basic technique. You don't have to know a lot of geometry of the edge. You have to know a little bit. But since the physical motions are only limited to 3 things, it makes the actual process easier, in my opinion. And I'm going to switch the stone around just to get a more even wear on it. Okay. Now, if I would have started with a 320 grit stone, I would have probably already apexed the edge. Now, if you're planning on putting a micro bevel on the edge, you don't have to get the edge apexed on this stone. If you know that on the, let's say the last stone you use, or even on this one, if you're going to do that, and that's what we'll do. We'll put a micro bevel on this just for demonstration purposes. Okay, I have not quite apexed the edge yet. So what I'm going to do, I decided I'm going to put a micro bevel on this edge. I find the initial bevel that I have already said. You can feel the flat spot. As you lift the spine up, you can feel that. If you can't feel it at first, don't worry about it. Keep practicing, and you will be able to feel it pretty soon. So now that I'm on the initial bevel angle that I started, I'm going to lift it just a tiny bit more, and this will be setting a different angle right on the edge, and I'll be apexing the edge right now. Go up. Now once you do this, you don't want to do that many strokes on each side. You want to switch it more than when you're setting the initial bevel. Okay, I'm going to find the initial angle, raise it, and then go up. Okay. Now I may there's not much of a burr, which is good. You don't want to create a big, huge burr. That's just wasted steel. You want to create just a tiny one. Actually, you want to create none. No burr is a goal, but you can't really do that. But you want to create as small of a burr as you can. Because like I said, that's just wasted steel. Grinding off wasted steel is bad, in my opinion. Okay. Okay, now let's see how this cuts right now. Okay, I got a lot of, well, there it goes. Still, it's not cutting, it's not even just yet. So, we'll do that a little bit more. Okay, get your angle set, keep the edge, the blade rather, at a 90-degree angle. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to use push strokes. Before I was going up and back with the edge making contact. But now I'm just going to do push strokes, which is always what I do. And I think it's the best way to do it when you're actually finishing the edge. The best way to remove a burr is using push strokes. That way you don't have any chance of straightening a burr back out straight in front of the edge. That will make it feel very sharp. But that steel, since it's folded up once, creating a burr, and you fold it back out straight, it's very weak, and it will snap off when you start cutting. Your blade will get dull faster, and you'll think that particular blade steel doesn't have good edge retention. And sometimes we buy a knife because it only for the only reason is you want good edge retention. You want it to stay sharp for a long time. Okay. I think that's about it. I'm pretty sure. Now the last couple of strokes are very, very light. And that's not really to sharpen it anymore as much as it is to get rid of any little tiny burr that may be there, and a little tiny burr that's so small that you can't detect it with the normal methods, like using the pad of your thumb or your thumbnail or anything like that. Just very light. As light as you can possibly make it. And that takes a little practice, but that's what you want to do. Okay. Okay. It's cutting good now. And what you want to do is you want to cut into the edge of the paper. Can you see? Yeah. At the heel to test the entire edge. And then make sure you don't have any chips or anything like that by determining how cuts all the way to the tip. Okay, so this one's fine right now. It's cutting good. I'm going to do a couple more very light strokes. Now the light strokes, believe it or not, are a little harder for me with the lighter knife. You can control the amount of pressure more with a bigger knife by moving your hand back and forth on the handle, holding at different places. Like holding a knife way at the end, you'll have more pressure on the stone than you will if you bring your fingers up closer to the balance point. So you could have it almost at the balance point of the blade, and then very little pressure is on the stone. It's still all the weight of the blade, but depending on where your fingers are, in reference to the balance point of the entire knife, can change the amount of pressure. Okay, I'm going to quit there with this video because I'm running out of time. What we have done started with keeping the edge, the blade at a 90-degree angle with the stone. Then you establish, and you can do that by just laying it flat if you want to. Establish the angle you want by raising the spine. And then as you go up to change the location of the edge that you're sharpening, you lift your hand straight up. Now be careful when you start lifting your hand, because I started doing it and I was actually twisting it to increase the angle a little bit. I didn't realize it while I was doing it. But when I got to looking at the bevel, I could see that the bevel up here was a little bit thinner or narrower than down here along this part. And that meant the angle was higher, because the higher the angle, the narrower the bevel will be. So I noticed that, and then I started paying a close attention to making sure that I did not twist my hand or twist the knife as I was moving. And I understand that issue more, and I can work on correcting it. Okay? I hope that's been clear. I may do another one, like a part 2 of this with a different stone, but I'm not sure. I'll have to give it some thought, because this is all the basics of this technique. The additional stones would be refinement or polishing the bevel and creating a smoother edge, rather than this is going to be left at a somewhat toothy edge with a coarse with a 1K stone. So that's it, and I'll let you guys go, and I appreciate anybody that's watched it, and take care.